Good afternoon everybody, welcome back to Journey with Arrows. My name's Dave. Now, a couple of weeks ago I put a post up asking you guys at home, the audience, what it is that you would like to see on this channel. And I got a whole plethora of things, some amazing ideas which I'm slowly working through. Today we are here to address a topic that was suggested on aiming when using thumb draw. Obviously the arrow's on the opposite side. I've briefly touched up on this quite a few years ago now on an old video, so I thought it'd be a good one to start with, kind of refresh it. This is by no means a how-to exactly, this is how it's done. This is how I do it, how it works for me. I'm sure many of the people use the same process and the same adaptation as well. So let's stop rambling, let's enjoy this weather, and I'm going to explain to you how it is that I shoot at a close distance. We're only about 30 yards here-ish, and then we're going to stretch it out to maybe 130 yards and see what we can get. And just talk you guys through the process that I use to aim while shooting an Asiatic bow with a thumb draw. We're not using anything super special today. We don't have the Griffin, and we are out with the new Sikai by the newer version of the Sikai from AF Archery. This is only about £50 at full draw, but yeah, let's start the video. Okay, so we're going to start with trying to do this in first person view so that you guys can see. Now obviously if you were shooting Mediterranean, you would be having your arrow over the knuckle side of your bow like this, and you'd be placing your arrowhead either above, below or on your target based on the draw weight of your bow and your arrows. Now obviously with a bow like mine here, there's no shelf, so your bow has to be a little bit to the side in order to see where your arrow is going to be going. If you had a shelf that was on there and it was center cut, you could probably cover it like this. Your arrow's probably going to go in the same direction. Obviously you have to compensate for the arrow going around the bow. Now, Asiatic archery. Obviously with this, the arrow is on the flip side. Now, unless you're short drawing, like in maybe Turkish archery, to the nose perhaps, you're not going to get that view. You're not going to be able to see your arrowhead. You're going to be looking at something that looks a little bit more like this. So, here's my process on how I shoot and hit the target when either it's covered or when it maybe it's just partially visible like this. Now, I'm not the best at verbally describing what I can visually see, but I'm going to do my best for you. So, as you've just seen on thumb draw, your arrowhead is a little bit obscured by the bow. Now, this bow has quite a narrow arrow pass, so this is going to vary depending on what bow that you use. When I'm at full draw with this bow and with my Griffin, my right eye can actually see all the way down the shaft, and it can see the end of the arrowhead, due to this being very narrow on this model of bow. Now my left eye is still looking over the top of here in the zone that I would be shooting with Mediterranean shoot. Obviously the only difference being is that I'm not using both eyes to look down the length of the arrow and place it on my target. When I'm at full draw here, I'm using my left eye to look over my left knuckle here and place it just a little bit to the side of where I'm going to be aiming. I find for me that generally brings this arrow into alignment with the target. Otherwise, if you put the bow in line with the target, your arrow is going to go off to the side. So just by doing that, for me, that's how I manage to get that alignment. Now, when I'm at full draw, as mentioned, I can see my arrowhead. I'm actually aiming with maybe 6 or 7 inches of this arrow shafted down here. Now, at close range like this, you could probably point it point blank at the target you want to be aiming at, and you could probably hit it. In regards to elevation, that's going to vary depending on your bow, and the only way that you're going to know that is by putting more arrows through your bow, maybe shooting a few from here, taking 5 steps back, shooting another 5, taking another 5 steps back, shooting another 5, and just keep stepping back and seeing how your arrow trajects, how does it shoot, and at what point does it drop off. Now, this probably works for me up to maybe, I'm trying to think of maybe 50 yards-ish, thereabouts. I could probably keep doing with what it is that I'm doing. Eventually, I'm going to get to a point where my hand is higher than the target and it's obscuring it, or the limb is obscuring it. Now, I'm going to come back to that because I have a method in which I get around that. But certainly if you spend all your time shooting with a bow that's perfectly straight and not canted, you're going to have that issue. Now, I'll see if I can give you a demonstration based on what I've just said, so you can actually hit the target now that the camera's rolling. But that's how I shoot at a closer distance. Now, I would consider this intuitive or instinctive archery. It is very much a case of I'm looking at my target, I'm focusing on trying to hit that target, I'm going to full draw, and at the moment that everything feels right and comfortable and I feel like I'm on line with that target is a moment that I'll let loose. So for me it's intuitive in that sense, is that I'm very much going on the feeling of the shot and the feeling of the draw. It works for me. Obviously this process changes a little bit based on your elevation and where you're shooting, how you're shooting, the position you're shooting. You've seen videos of me shooting from the top of castle turrets. If you haven't already, then go check it out. I'll put it in the little bottom of bit of the screen here for you. Very much good fun. But that's how I shoot at a target, and obviously the same principle applies the further back I go. I just aim a little bit higher and I compensate for my arrow drop, which I have a rough idea of when these arrows are going to start to drop off and how they fly, because I'm used to shooting this bow and I'm used to shooting these arrows. I know that this bow performs very different to the Griffin and with the Griffin's arrows, and I know how they traject. The Griffin shoots a lot more flatter. I can be stood further back and still point aim on at the target, and it's still going to go in a straight line before it starts to arc and traject. At this distance here with this bow, I'm actually aiming below that white spot because the arrow is still raising. It's got bitten. The arrow is still raising as it leaves the bow. It hasn't got to a point where it's flying true. I could probably take another 20 yards back and it would probably still go in the same place. But the process is exactly the same. Now I'm going to spin the camera around. We've got a flag out quite far over that way. I'm going to show you guys where it is on the rangefinder. And I'm going to explain to you how I now compensate for a further distance. So we're up here on the hill. We're going to shoot down the valley that's down here. Now we do have a very tattered old flag that's just hung out from down there. Okay, so this is a bit difficult to do. I'm currently balancing on the tripod, holding the phone to the rangefinder. Now you can just see the flag that's down there. We are 131 yards out. I'll see if I can get that reading on here for you. 129. I got 130, 131 when I was holding it freehand. But we're essentially 130 yards away from the flag, which is all the way down there. So I'm gonna put you back in the tripod because I had to take that off to do that. Now I've obviously marked this with the arrow, so you can see we'll move this back whilst we're on camera so I can stand there and you can see me in the shot. And I'm going to explain to you how I aim that distance and the potential issues and difficulties you might find and how I combat them. Let's go back to the target that we were just aiming at, which is this black box that's down there. Now, as previously mentioned, maybe even at this distance, if you're shooting 3 fingers, you can aim your arrow at the target. Obviously you'd aim higher because it's going to traject in. Whether you're aiming with a straight bow or a bow that's on a cant, the principle's still the same, but you're going to be shooting what's called overhand. Now I know some people will use this little window here to aim like this, and they'll base everything else on the trajectory. It's a very similar way to which I do it in thumb draw. Now I don't know if other people do the same as this, but at full draw here, let's move these fletchings out the way. At full draw, you get that nice little window that just opens up here for you, just between my thumb and my arrow, where that upside down arrowhead is, the little V. It just sits in nice. Obviously with a straight bow, you are not going to be able to do that because you can't see it. So I just cant the bow a little bit, I open it up that little window, and I can see where my target is, and then I'm still using this 6-7 inches of arrow here to make sure that I'm in the right orientation for windage, left and right, and my trajectory and my window is based on what I can see underneath my thumb. Obviously if I'm further away, that's going to come further down, depending on the distance, and that's just through understanding and knowledge of how your bow works and how your arrows perform. So let's go back down onto the flag that's 130 yards out, and she'll try and put that into practice for you, and we'll see where my arrows land. I'm going to shoot a few and we'll see where we end up. So we're on the opposite side of that wall. Now up here the wind is fairly still, you probably can't hear it on the camera. Got a fly on the lens, let's get it off. But down there the flag is blowing to the left, so up here if I was to take a shot at this moment, I'm going to take that into account. I'm going to aim a little bit to the right of that flag, on the assumption that my arrow's probably going to blow and drift in. Obviously, if I aim directly at it, in theory, my arrow should land to the left if it's windy enough to move the arrow in flight. With big feathers like this, that's probably going to be more the case. Obviously, with a smaller feather, it's probably not going to affect the arrow flight as much. That looked like it was pretty much on point. The first one had a bit of a dodgy arrow flight. I think that was my release. I took some of the speed out of that arrow and it didn't quite make the distance. So from what I can see up here, and I can only see the white fletchings, is that 3 of those so far are maybe within about 2.5–3 feet of each other, just around the base of that flag. That one I think is at the base of the flag. And again, all I'm doing here, I'm just using 6 or 7 inches of this arrow shaft when I'm at full draw, to make sure I'm not too far to the left or too far to the right. I'm using my right eye as the peripheral vision just to see the end of my arrowhead when I'm at full draw, the same as we did on the target down there. And I'm using my left eye just to look over my knuckle and just to give me an idea of windage based on where my arrow is going to be going. So the wind's picked up a little bit down there, it's blowing to the left, so I'm just going to aim a little to the right and it should just curve in. I think that was a little short actually, but the line was good. Now this is what I like about roving. So this essentially changes every time you do it. The wind is always different, the weather's always different, the ground and the terrain, obviously based on where you stand, is changing. So we're obviously elevated here. You have to take that into account. You have to take into account with you being higher up, your arrows are going to drop off sooner, so I don't need to aim maybe as steep. There's all sorts of variables that come into play, and it's essentially what they would have had to deal with in war on the battlefield. They have to be able to read the terrain, know their bow, and know where to place an arrow consistently in order to make the damage that's required. Let's take a wander down and see where we ended up. In fact, actually, before we do, let's use this arrow, then I don't have to walk all the way back up for it. There we go. Now obviously with a bow like this and with a long bow, you're not going to be sticking it through the eye of the flag like you would do with a compound. That's not what we're doing here. This is replicating battlefield archery. There would be a troop of guys down there, there'd be a troop of my guys up here, archers, lobbing arrows down, and it's damage in volume and damage in numbers. This is just me on my own. I think I would have potentially took out a few guys there. Let's just see where we ended up. So, yeah, the first one that I said where I had a bit of a bad release, I took some of the speed out of that arrow, landed here. So in relation to the flag, which is just there, it's obviously short. Now, I've got another one here. I've got another one here. And then I've got 5 really good ones. 1, 2. I've got one at the base of the flag, just here. I've got one there, and we have one just here as well. Now, for a rove, I feel like that's a pretty good shoot. these 3 arrows here probably would have scored at the bottom. The one at the back may have done potentially. Obviously the ones further back wouldn't have done. But if this was a big group of people or a group of soldiers coming in, you've certainly killed one guy outright. You've probably killed 2 guys here that are walking as they're marching forwards, and by the time the guy that was where this flag is has walked forwards, by the time your arrows come in, you've probably hit him with the other ones at the front as well. So obviously you can get your groupings tighter the more you do it, but from 131 yards, just on the top side, we were just past this dark green patch here. I think that's pretty decent in all fairness. So guys, I hope that's been of use to you. I hope it's given you a little bit of an insight on how I shoot with an Asiatic bow. It's obviously different to the way I shoot with a Mediterranean bow. Yeah, if you have anything else you want to know, if you think I've missed anything, if you do it differently, just let me know. Pop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And thank you very much for sticking with me. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button. We've not had a new subscriber in a little while, so it'd be really nice just to bunk up the numbers a little bit more. And please do just leave a like. It takes 2 seconds to hit that like and hit that thumbs up, and it actually does a world of wonders for the YouTube channel as well. So I'll see you guys on the next video. I'm probably going to start filming the one to come out after this, and I'll see you then. Cheers guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video.